Welcome to our SPIN conference workshop on ABA and PBS, and that stands for Applied Behavioral Analysis and Positive Behavior Supports. And with it, we have one of our very favorite SPIN presenters, Joshua Fouts, who is a crowd pleaser, and you're going to love him. He's the director of Applied Behavioral Analysis at Kaiser Permanente, Hawaii, where he oversees ABA treatment and helps children and adults with autism spectrum disorder and other neurodevelopmental disorders to improve their symptoms. He helps maximize treatment outcomes and make ongoing progress with their therapy to help them reach their full potential and beyond. And I'm going to hand the baton to Josh, and he's going to wow you. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Susan. That was the coolest intro of all times. I hope to live up to it. Actually, cool fun fact is I've gotten to present at SPIN a bunch, and I always seem to get this topic, which is my absolute favorite that we're going to be talking about today. And I like it so much that I put together probably 4 or 5 different presentations from previous years into one, and I ended up with over 400 slides. But then slowly started to take out and then fill in the gaps, and so we got it to just under 80. So with that, with 40 minutes, I think I have so much time on each slide, or else we're going to go late. So the idea of this presentation, everything under the sun, is really, when I put it together, I wanted to give as much as we could to practitioners, to parents, to professionals, to self-advocates, to consumers, to everybody who may be at this talk. And I'm really glad we're recording this so that it can be housed online and people can access it when they want. And if it gets too thick with jargon, that's my fault. It should never be that way. You should always be able to deliver the content in, I think, easy to use, user-friendly manner. But if it does, then you could pause it or take a break and come back to it later. So, okay, so everything under the sun. So this conference was supposed to be in March, and now it got moved to October, and we probably a lot has changed. A lot has gone on from March to October, and some of us may feel like this year we want to return it, and can't wait for the new year to start. So we're almost there, guys. 2020 is almost over. So everything under the sun. It's not the Sublime box set, which I own, which was a cool box set. Is a cool box set. It's not the heat that we've been having in Hawaii. It's sometimes feels like the summer's come back again. The Earth started turning the other way. It's everything that is function-based treatment. So this is really what I like to talk about, and I think it's the hot item when you talk about treatment and symptoms and improving and addressing concerns and assessment. It always revolves around what the function-based treatment is going to be for the behavior. So that's really the majority of what we do. Although there are other things in the description of the presentation, which we'll be talking about as well. So PBS and ABA, and going through overview of those. Looking at these questions, the why, whens, and hows for when behavior occurs, and what these words mean, and looking at the role of everybody involved when you put in a support plan. Looking at FBAs, everything when you talk about behavior should start with an FBA, and that's important, and I'll tell you why. Help improve the child's behavior at home. So looking at evidence-based strategies that we can put in place. I think I go over 75 plus different strategies. Some of them you'll know, some of them it may sound familiar, and others may be new. And some of you may know all of these strategies. I think there's a big myth about ABA at times with what strategies to use and who can do it. But I hope to show you it's not as complicated, and the ABA shouldn't be, PBS shouldn't be as thought of as a scary acronym in the alphabet soup world. It's a lot of things you're probably already doing as a teacher, professional, as a parent, as a individual, doing some self-management. So that's the last one, monitor your own behavior. So great. All right, let's start off with the top item, which is what is ABA. So there's an official definition. I think it's on the next slide, but really just to give you the breakdown of it, it's looking at different skills that we can kind of put in these measurable units and then kind of teaching them. So that's really what ABA is in a nutshell. If you're given 5 seconds in an elevator to give a speech, that's maybe one way to describe what ABA is. You're individualizing everything. So this is not a cookie cutter strategy, cookie cutter approach. In the schools, we hear a lot about individualizing an education plan. ABA is definitely works best when it's individualized. So reinforcement versus punishment is an essential part of it. And the field of ABA is probably in its kind of third wave, and the positive based supports or strategies is really the way it's going. The punishment side of ABA is really happening less and less. In fact, there's just a handful of folks I know in the field that are still researching punishment, and they say, Brian Iwata is probably the big one down in Florida, that the reason they do it is that hopefully one day they don't need it. So that's kind of an interesting way of looking at punishment. But reinforcement is really the way things are going with ABA. And it's good because reinforcement can be done across all the settings, mom, dad, and siblings and teachers and professionals. Or punishment, man, the ethical side really comes into play with certain punishers. And then lastly, or second to last, the visual presentation. Data is big in ABA. We always say that drives the treatment, the data. And then we're kind of looking at these problem behaviors and breaking them down to assess and treat. So there's our definition. Pretty straightforward, getting the word broken down, applied, behavioral, analytical. So we want something that's applied that's going to have some kind of social significance, something that's going to help with this individual. We want it to be looking at the behavior. So that's the beginning and the end of the event, the behavior that you can observe and record. And then analytical, we want obviously data. Okay. So there we go. Let's put a little more fine strokes into ABA here. So here's some more 10 of additional things that you can know about behavior. So PBS really is just a form of ABA. So it's under the big umbrella. In our field, there's a saying, the pigeon is always right. It's probably from the first wave of ABA, or kind of got, and it started with operant behavior with Skinner in a lab using pigeons. And so you can replace the word pigeon with student or individual, say the individual is always right. So it's the teaching that needs to change. So it's the strategies and the setting that needs to change. The individual is always right. So again, that goes back to individualized instruction. There are really two purposes. This could be part of your elevator speech too, I think. You're reducing bad behaviors and you're building good behaviors. Adaptive. So that's what we're doing. Two sides of the coin. All right. So we know problem behaviors have a purpose. That they're happening for a reason. There's something that's going on. What's the purpose? A lot of times I like to say, problem behaviors are just communication. They're telling us something. When the individual can't use their words, they're using their behaviors. And usually the words are the last to be used. The behaviors are used first. So you think of feeding, child's giving their behaviors. So we usually do that before putting words to it. So they're learned just like any other behavior. And if they're happening, there's something's reinforcing this behavior. So that's really good to know. We got to change our approach, because if it's happening ongoingly, we know that there's a reinforcer there that's maintaining it. And improving the problem behavior is going to happen when you look at the effect that the behavior has on the environment. So what effect does it have? Like, it starts with the FBA. This is our end goal of behavior therapy of ABA. We want more inclusion. We want more mainstream, more independence, better quality of life. So no problem kids, no bad kids. It's a cool book. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But rather the context that kind of support the problem behavior. So no such thing as a bad kid or a problem kid. And if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. It's a kind of a cool concept. All right, these ones couldn't fit in the top 10, but they probably are the top comments on the entire presentation. Really the core of what we do, I think, in the field. Person first, right? So you always want to see the person first. That's like in everything, not the disorder or disability or the condition that they have. This is just another way the brain can work. This whole idea of neurotypical, it really flipped on its head about 10 years ago in the field to neurodiversity. So celebrating differences, brain function and behavior traits. Why do we want to have two brains that think the same? When you can have your brain see things in a different way. How cool. And probably the number one reason of what we're doing here today is we want individuals who may be different not to feel different. It's probably what it all comes down to. And again, things have really improved a lot in recent years, but there's so much more to go in the disability field, to equality and rights. And hopefully some of this today because you can't really pull those areas apart when you talk about this field. They're all entwined like a nice little quilt. Okay, so rights, basic client rights, basic student rights. There are rights all over the place. Consumer rights. These are some of the big ones. Every field has them. The education field, the medical field, therapeutic field. So we know individuals have the right to therapeutic environment, right? Has the right to services whose overriding goal is the personal welfare. Has a right to treatment by a competent therapist. A right to programs that teach functional skills. Has a right to behavioral assessment and ongoing evaluation, and has a right to most effective treatment procedures available. So to me, this all boils down to choice and to an individual being able to have a world and a setting that they enjoy and they have control over. The field has come a long way. You used to tell individuals with disabilities when to go to bed, what to eat, where to work, when the bus was leaving, when to be on the bus. But now there's so much more out there, so much more of the rights, and things probably changed in the field in a big way when the institutions were shut down. So in Hawaii, that Waimanahome Road is still up there, but it's maybe offices for administration. In the late 90s, the law passed. So that was a good thing. All right, so let's dive in. Let's jump in. I don't think that's Waimea, but it looks like it could be, but I don't know where that is. Let's get into this thing here. So we got two types of behaviors that we're looking at. Let's keep it simple. So what does this look like? This slide is so hard to look at, but it's important. For those who work in the field, those who are parents, man, you probably got just some sort of internal tickle going of uncomfortable feeling or some sort of memory, some kind of vibe is going on, impression, picture in your head of an event that has happened before. This is what it looks like. It's pretty straightforward. Man, it's not so good for the individual. So we can kind of break these behaviors down into kind of being too much or not enough. So I think, man, you got to keep it simple in the field. Don't get lost with all the buzzwords and the technical stuff. It's too much or too little. So too much of these things on the left, we got that. We got, or not enough of these things on the right. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to get the spectrum, back to where it would be in the adaptive level, because it's kind of gone out of whack. So what does adaptive look like? Oh, look at this slide. It's independence, it's social, it's quality of life, all of those things that we're doing when we get good outcomes. So this is what the adaptive looks like. Fun fact, who knows what that recreation picture is there on the bottom left, the kids with the swords? LARPing, live action role play. If you have a teen with special needs, a lot of times LARPing is a real hyper focus area that you can get really into and dress up. And I haven't seen any LARPers out in the parks here, maybe because it's COVID, but yeah, get those masks on and start LARPing. All right. Oh, there we go. We got a high five guy at the end. Oh, and a little floor time guy. Okay. So why is behavior bad or good? Because it works. It works for the individual. The individual knows if they do this behavior, they get an outcome. They get something at the end. They get something that's a reinforcer for that behavior to happen more in the future, because it works. When is behavior bad or good? Anytime it's being reinforced. Anytime. So if it's continuing, it's being reinforced. So what's reinforcing its behavior? How is behavior bad or good? It's based on the function of our current environment, the history of that behavior, and the genetics. Pretty cool. We're going to talk more about those three components of how later on in this presentation. So yeah, a lot of things go into good and or bad behavior. So for the most part, we start to think of things that the function is the first word that starts to come up when we think of the why. So there's kind of a cool acronym, SEAT. So many of you guys have heard these terms before. So it's sensory and escape and attention or tangible behavior. FBAs are important because a lot of times it's not just one function. So that's good to know. Okay, so let's look at some attention-seeking behavior. All right, there's our guy. There's always one. Look at our little clown hat, trying to get some attention. So what are the strategies? Well, we can do some planned ignoring. So we know the attention seeker is looking for attention. Make it a burst, maybe an extinction burst where the behavior gets worse before it gets better. So can you wait it out? If the behavior is dangerous, you cannot use planned ignoring. You got to do something else, because we do not want the behavior to escalate in a certain way that the individual's in harm's way. So maybe you can make attention a reinforcer for the behaviors we want. Okay. Teach appropriate ways to get attention. Rule number 2, raise your hand for permission to speak, and using attention to reinforce others doing the right thing. A lot of times I think of like that class picture in the beginning, who's sitting down, who's reading, who's in their chair, who's raising their hand. This is the part you ignore. Okay, escape. This guy does not want to do his math work, although it looks like it's coloring. Coloring should be fun, but maybe it's not for this guy. Maybe he's got a fine motor issue and does not want to color. Okay, so what do? Some strategies. We can continue to repeat the demand. That big buzzword right now is escape extinction. So your escape is on extinction. Teach an appropriate request. Here's a little break card. Touch this yellow thing. I need a break, and you get a 5-minute break. All you got to do is touch this card. All right, reduce the demand, right? So as soon as you do this, I will stop standing over you at your desk. And then first, you're going to do this, then you're going to get that. First, we're going to work, then you're going to get computer. Super cool. Okay, the tangible seeking. What does this kid want? Most likely it looks to be like You want some candy. All right, use that tangible item, that candy, as a reinforcer for appropriate behavior. Okay, so we got a lot of these star charts, kind of, I guess it's a delayed reinforcement. You get 5 of these stars, and then what are you working for? Working for that candy. All right, choice is good, so given choice, lots of choice. What do you want to work for? I want to work for the Skittles, I want to work for the Snickers, I want to work for the peanut butter cups. What do you want to work for? All right, and then you can reinforce others using the preferred item. Oh boy, everyone else is getting Skittles. I want some Skittles. So there you go. A lot of times these look like kind of classroom reinforcer boards, but you can definitely use these across all environments. All right, try to be consistent. We got that. Kids know they can see it a mile away when you're not. Individuals know. Teens know, young adults, they know, man. Be consistent, be fair. Offer choices. We all want choices. Timers are good. There's some fields that some practitioners that don't use timers, some like them. Whatever works, man. If it works to use a timer, use it. I'm using a timer right now. Stay calm, right? That's tough, but try to stay calm. If you make a request, you got to follow through. If you ask the individual, got to follow through. If not, wait for the next one. Wait for the next tantrum. Got to make a request. You got to follow through when you say you're going to do something. If you can't follow through, don't make the request. So pay attention to the behaviors you want to ignore, not the one. Ignore the ones you don't want. All right, pretty straightforward. Okay, internally motivated. Oh, look at this. So we think of the stemming, maybe some things that are sensory related, sameness, spinning, rocking. There we go. There's all the buzzwords. Okay, so what is this? These are things you can do on your own. So you get some kind of sensory input or output. Those are the different types. Those are the big buzzwords. This is the toughest, the hardest of all of the behaviors. The function-based treatments. These are the toughest because we don't know. We don't know if it's sensory stimulating or sensory calming. And that does make a difference, but it's so hard to know because it's internal. A lot of times the individuals are not able to tell us, and we can't get a hold on things. So this is the hardest. So we go through all the senses. Man, this is what it looks like. A lot of different things. We've probably seen all these, the visuals, the auditories, the tactiles, the rockin', emotion, the tastes, and the smells. All right, so what are the concerns? If it's not harming the individual, I think, it's not that high of a level of concern. I guess you could say if it's starting to affect learning and social and friend making, socializing, it starts to be a concern. So it's tough because a lot of times this behavior by definition is done automatically, so you don't need others around. So we want to make sure that the strategy is something that the individual can use wherever they go. Sometimes just using a verbal reminder aren't enough. So what evidence-based strategy? This is tough. Medication may be an option. Getting a sensory break. Put the word vigorous in there. Probably should just say sensory break. Blocking the behavior so that response interruption redirection is kind of a big buzzword right now with the sensory seeking behaviors. Reinforce the time when they don't have it. Replace it, which can work. Someone monitoring themselves and then using it as a time and place reinforcer. So if you do this first, you work, then you can go have a sensory break, have a opportunity to stem and get some of your wiggles out or whatever it may be. This is such a tough one. I think it's so controversial right now because so many of these behaviors start to go into the realm of the tics, kind of cracking the knuckles. Maybe you're almost not even realizing you're doing it. It's almost like a sneeze. Sometimes it gets described as, and would you ever get mad at somebody for sneezing? Of course not. So again, I think, if there's a time and a place you can do it, and if the behavior is not causing any harm, I think it's okay. It's a way for the individual to express their sensory input or calming, the excess or input, to get rid of something or to put it in to kind of keep them balanced. So I knew a guy once that would rock in his chair, and he said when he stopped rocking, it felt like he was falling. So the way for him in class was to have those little bumpy seat cushions and kind of do a little jiggle on his butt, and that allowed him to focus. So yeah, imagine that you're falling, that feeling of falling. That's horrible. Why would we want anyone to have that? Okay, so what's the role? Self-care. This is so good. The first place the blood goes when it leaves the heart is back into itself. So you got to take care of yourself. Doesn't go to the brain, doesn't go to the stomach, doesn't go to your toes. It goes back into itself. Self-care, man. Get together with your professionals, with the teachers, the therapists, the board certified behavior analysts. Get together, work together. We're all saying the same thing, man. There's this big myth of not playing nice in the sandbox with the professions. No, we're all trying to improve the child's independence and quality of life and inclusion. And a lot of times we're just using different buzzwords. So team effort, plan, communicate. A lot of feedback is always the way to go. Sometimes it's difficult to identify variables to maintain it, which is why an FBA is so important, getting the professionals on there. An example would be something that I love this time of year, which is pumpkin cheesecake. If I just had the vanilla or the cloves or the cinnamon individually, wouldn't quite be the same level of a reinforcer for me to work for. But you put all those things together, oh baby, that's just the filling here. I didn't even include the ingredients for the crusts or the topping. So multiple functions go into play. You can think of it like that. It's not just escape or attention. It's a lot of times all three, depending on where they are and who's with them. Okay, so what are we going to teach? There's over 2 million links to ASD on Google search. There's no guarantee that what you click on is going to be evidence-based. This was a couple of years ago, so there's probably more than 2 million now. FBAs, man, so important to get this. If we have any challenging behavior, if you don't have challenging behavior, that's probably the one time you can skip an FBA. But most of our kids have some sort of challenging, problematic, maladaptive behavior. Okay, so we're looking at getting the functions of the behavior. What are the target behaviors? Looking at the events, and then from there we got to get some kind of behavioral plan. So FBAs usually have the treatment options as well. Sometimes they split them up to an FBA and a behavioral plan, but they're all the same. You got to have both when you have challenging behavior. No challenging behavior, you probably go straight to just some sort of skill-based learning plan. Okay, we got a couple ways to do it. So you can just give a questionnaire to a family member. You never really see it. There's a lot of these ones out there. And it goes in level of the quality of the FBA. So indirect is probably the lowest level of validity to it. And the next level will be the descriptive. So seeing the behavior. So we got a lot of times it's ABC, antecedent behavior consequence form, where we're looking at before and after, so observing it. And the high level, the Cadillac version, Tesla version of FBAs is you're doing control and test conditions, right? And we're alternating these conditions, and we're comparing it to the free play condition. When I remove an item from somebody, is there a tick in behavior, tangible? When I remove my attention and I'm talking to the parent, is there a tick in behavior, attention? When I give a demand to do a cleanup activity, is there a tick in behavior, escape? And then same as attention is the sensory. When the child's alone, is there a tick in behavior? So cool, man. You got to know. We got to know where the function is. So a lot of times, then after the FBA challenging behavior, you're doing some sort of evidence-based assessment. So we kind of split them up: norm reference, criterion reference. A lot of the alphabet soup here. So these are getting a baseline and then getting a skill to what are we going to teach? What are we going to add? So here we go. Let's break down one of these. Most of folks here are probably familiar with this one, the VB map. It's a map for verbal behavior. Okay. So there you go. Children, it's this guy, Sundberg, 2008, still one of the top tools out there for children with language delays. And it was based on Skinner's verbal behavior book. Okay, so what do we do with this thing? We're getting a baseline compared to other kids, typical developing peers. We're looking at what skills we're going to teach and looking at some kind of level of instruction for each skill. And then we're putting together a program. And that's it. So there's our map. We got our map, a roadmap. Okay, so how's this different from speech and language? Speech and language, are going to do mean level utterance, mean MLU. Man, I wish we had a speech therapist phone the audience here. Mean level of utterance. I think that's what it is. It's a speech therapy term. So VB Map's going to extend on that and look at the why, right? So what's the context? What's the before? What's the after of the language that we're building here? Level of utterance. I have to Google that afterwards, make sure I got that right. Okay, so VB Map, test structure. Look at this thing. We got 3 areas, level 1, level 2, level 3. We got 16 skill areas, the mans and the text and the listener and the matching. That's a lot. 170 of these little milestones. So let's look at some of these. This is a big word. It's a made-up word. It's not in a dictionary. It's short for demand. So if you want the cookie, I want the cookie. So it's short for demand. Another big one is tact. Don't look this up in a dictionary. It's not there. It's short for contact. So you don't get it. You're just labeling something that you see. Chocolate chip cookie. Listener responding. So that's good. That's the receptive side. Mom says, find the cookie. And the child goes and gets the cookie. Okay, some visual matching to sample, maybe patterns, cookies to Cookie Monster, salmon is to bear, as pumpkin cheesecake is to me. All right, filling in the blanks. Don't look this up in the dictionary. It is not there. It's another made-up word by Skinner. Introverbal. So you fill in, how old are you? What school do you go to? What is your favorite food? Cookie. All right. Okay, so let's look at some other evidence-based strategies. We're doing okay on time. So far, better see. Whoa, so a couple of these big ones here. Man, there's so many. And some of these get repeated elsewhere in the presentation. So BREMAC principle, do a fast 30-second review here of these. Grandma's law, so you got to eat your veggies before you get your ice cream. Increase your pairing. So maybe we're pairing some kind of item that they can take with them, a transitional item. Maybe they're taking their phone with them as they're going to wait in the waiting room. So the waiting room's not as intimidating. So we're pairing the environment that's not preferred with something that's preferred. Maybe we're doing a higher rate of these mastered skills. So doing a couple of touch your nose, touch your head, touch your ear, and then saying, when's your birthday? So doing a couple of these ones, get some momentum going. Making the response effort a little less, so maybe it's a little bit easier for them to reach the goal. A lot of modifying and prompts, that's everything. Change of pace, so faster or slower. Session time can be increased or decreased. Maybe a reinforcer assessment, like what does this child want to work for? What do they like? Increase the quality of the reinforcer. Maybe the reinforcer you have stinks, they don't like it. Change the field of where you're presenting things. Change the physical environment. That's probably like the best thing. I have a 4 and a 2-year-old. Man, when they're tantruming, we go outside to see the geckos on the wall. Tantrum done. Change the environment. Teach some skills they're going to need. Got to have the prerequisite skills. Decrease the number of goals and objective. This math paper has 20 questions. Let's give them 3. Build the more motivation by hitting a deprivation for the specific reinforcer. So if you're working for candy bars, but they already had 2 candy bars that day, they may not be as highly rewarded when they get that thing. Maybe don't give candy bars for a week, and then we're working for candy bars on Friday. All right, and change your procedure up. Yeah, maybe as opposed to the forward chaining, you need to do a backward chaining, or do a behavior contract, or self-management. Okay, and then let's blow through these guys here. A lot of reinforcement. It's everything. So the reinforcer, can be done afterwards. It is done. It's given afterwards. So provide more valuable of a reinforcer after the behavior. A higher rate of reinforcement. So there's kind of a lower amount of trials that they need to do to get it. Reinforce right away. The more immediate consequences, the more potent it is. So if you're giving a pizza party on Friday for something they did on Monday, or pizza parties at the end of the semester for something they did in the beginning of the semester, doesn't mean anything. Give the pizza party right away. Provide greater magnitude, as opposed to just one piece of pizza. Maybe it's everybody can get up to 4 pieces. Better use of extinction, right? So, man, we know that extinction is a great way to just not give no chance of getting that reinforcer for the individual. We can improve our differential reinforcement. We're going to go through that in a second. Lots of different ways to differentially reinforce, another behavior, an alternate behavior, an incompatible behavior, a lower rate of behavior, high rate of behavior, and then ultimately behavior mod, which, 4 or 5% of the time, that's what it gets down to. And that is the hand over hand, airless learning, you call it that. You're blocking, response blocking, and kind of redirecting. So hopefully the behavior mod, there's really cool buzzwords out there. One I can think of is pause, not clause, right? So when you're redirecting hand over hand, not like this. So it's about safety of the individual and the staff. Okay, here's some pro tips. Greg Hanley, top guy in the research right now, I think, in all the journals. Great stuff. Decrease the amounts of instructions per day. Your child want to hear 100 of them, or maybe 10 really important ones. Don't give instructions during the play. It's playtime. Get out of there. Stop telling them how to play with their truck. Only provide the instructions you can follow through with. A lot of these are repeat themes that repackaged differently. They're so important. If you can't follow through, do not give the instruction. Give a lot of choices. Man, that's like everything. Everybody wants choice. Gives you control. Say the child's name. Got to get the instructional control. That's the big buzzword right now. If you don't have the instructional control, you can't deliver skills. Got a couple of hitchhikers here. It's a comma in the middle of nowhere, and I think an I at the next one. Who spell checked this thing? That was me. Clear and concise. Man, don't give too many words, and don't say you better shape up. When what you really want them to do is to stand in line. So be clear. Don't give these weird sayings. Okay, the 3-step, that's a cool thing. So tell, show, help, as opposed to do, tell, show, help. So help is, I'm just going to help you do it. Man, I think everything goes back to this. Tell them, show them, I'm just going to help you. I use this in my house with 4 and a 2-year-old every day. I always follow through. If you can't follow through, don't say it. And if you forget to follow through, maybe just wait till the next one. There'll be another tantrum coming up your way soon. Don't worry about that. All right, Lansbury, No Bad Kids. She's super cool. She's got a bunch of books. I think she's awesome. She's like a movie star from the 80s, but then she got into this really cool parenting style and wrote a bunch of books. So that's her own preschool in California. Okay, speaking the first person, don't say dad needs you to clean up. No, don't say Mr. Fouts needs you to do this. Say I need you to do this. I need you to do this. Yeah. So speaking the first person, we're getting close to the 40-minute mark, and I tried to say we'd keep it under, but I'm going to keep going here. Maybe we can edit this after the recording. Yeah. So I'm just going to keep going. Man, these lectures and emotional reactions and the scolding and punishments, they don't give our child the clarity they need, right? So they create a lot of guilt and shame. So try to avoid all these guilt trips and punishers, and maybe, look at some, as a parent or as a professional, maybe that was what you had. So maybe you need to do some research into your history of the behaviors and what worked for you, and see what can work best for the child and individual you're working with that is positive and doesn't have any side effects. So we know the scolding and the guilt will work, but there's a lot of side effects to the individual who gets these strategies given to them. And you'll talk to adults that have suffered, from 40 years ago when they were a child, from a parent's guilt trip or parents removing their love. You should never ever remove your love from the child. You're just teaching them. Your love shouldn't be changed on them cleaning up or not cleaning up. That's just crazy stuff. Okay, react immediately, right? So this is the big buzzword. Just do it immediately. If not, wait to the next one. You're going to have another tantrum. Oh, I skipped natural consequences. Super important. If we don't get ready quick enough, we're not going to the beach. So that's the natural consequence of not getting ready to go and packing your bags on Saturday. So we get there at noon, we're going to get sunburn. All right, and don't discipline a child for crying. They need freedom to safely express their feelings. Thank you, Janet Lansbury. All right, so here we go. Here's some more let's see, evidence-based strategies. Man, time and place, that's great. A lot of our teens or young adults with masturbation, time and place, man. As long as it's in your bathroom or your room, not in the library or the school bathroom, man, we're okay. Time and place. Got to give time and place. Prompts. Yeah, we got this: most to least, least to most. Buzzwords. So full physical, that would be the hand over hand. And then a natural cue. All the other kids are lining up, so it's time to line up, and everything in between there. All right, helping a child. Tyler, select any name that starts with a T instead of a specific name. So we want to help them discriminate. So that's important. Shaping, great. So we can shape a greeting. Maybe first we reinforce the wave for being here, and then the wave here, and then we're only reinforcing, there. So we're slowly shaping the behavior. So we got the chaining, forward, backward, total task. First, I think I break it down here in a second. I didn't mean to go through that slide too quickly, but you got to break down the behavior to all the little tasks that go into it. So it's called a task analysis. So making Kool-Aid, you probably got 10 steps. Making a cookie, you probably got 10 steps. Making a cheesecake, a little more intense. You probably got about 15 steps. You need to have the right spring-loaded crust thing. Man, love cheesecake. All right, so you got the forward one, right? So step 1 out of step 10 first, and then they do step 1 and 2, then step 1, 2, and 3. Backward chaining. So the 10 steps, you're doing step 10 first. You're eating that cookie first. Oh, baby. And then maybe, step 9, you're taking the cookie out with the spatula off the sheet and eating that cookie. And step 8, you're opening up the oven with the mitt, taking the pan out. I think that's step 7. So you're doing it kind of in a backwards way. Then you got your total task, so the idea is that the all 15 steps of the cheesecake, maybe I got a few of them, but I don't have them in the right order. So we're really working on doing this whole total task presentation. Man, social stories. These are big and buzzword and super cool, and can be everything from hitting mom. So when I get angry, I sometimes hit mom or mommy. Maybe this is from New Zealand. This makes mommy sad. When I feel like hitting, I need to stop. I will hold my hands. I will take 5 big breaths. Mommy is happy when I'm calm. Super cool. Social stories. Here we go. Playing with kids on the playground. If they say no, it is okay. I can play with other children. It's a great way to rehearse this. Event that they're going to see a lot of, so they don't have to practice ahead of time. So speaking with practice, a good segue for video modeling. It's like social stories, but a model of it. Uh-oh, my internet connection's unstable. Oh, it's back. So video clips, there we go. Look at some modeling. Probably got some great videos out there of apps you can buy in the moment. We do a peers social skills group. It's a lot of video modeling of what to do, what not to do. Teenage social skills group. Video self-modeling. So you're doing a video of yourself. Man, with a phone, you can make all kinds of stuff of the individual. That is really reinforcing when they can see them. Every time I hear my voice, I always, you watch or listen to yourself. So you always feel like, man, is that really what I sound like? Anyway, self-modeling. Yeah, so great. So watching yourself. Got the contracts. You got the self-contract. This is super cool. I mean, there are so many things you could go into with contracts. Contracts, choose 3 of the things I'm going to create. There you go. Eat healthy foods. I will not tattle. And we got a student behavior contract, first rule, and what's the consequence? And if I do follow the rule, what's the privilege? Super cool. Man, token economy. Everybody's got some kind of cool token economy, something they're working for, something they're getting. Token economies are all over the place. Here's some cool elements to making it work. Right? If your token economy is not working, maybe you're not doing it the right way. Some self-management. So I can help somebody, get through their day, replace the bad habits. All right, non-contingent reinforcement, probably something that is not used enough and needs to be used all the time. It's just a way to reinforce the individual that's not contingent on them doing anything. It's just kind of a set way of them getting the reinforcement. So the example I can think of is you got that student who needs attention, put them in front of the class. Teacher's going to be all over that student with attention. You got the differential reinforcers, right? So let's see, I think we break it down. There we go. So there's maybe another behavior that you can get reinforced for. So I like the way you're sitting, I like the way you're raising your hand, I like whatever. So some other behavior besides what the behavior they're doing. So just reinforcing other behavior. An alternate behavior, the big buzz one I can think of is the break cards. So getting kind of a different way, an alternate way of getting what you want, as opposed to throwing a tantrum and throwing your body back. Hit the break card, and you get a break. Incompatible reinforcement. So a lot of times you think of something that if they're going to be whacking kids as they walk through the class, in the back of the head, maybe they're holding the books as they come in, because it's hard to whack someone when you're holding books. So some kind of incompatible reinforcement. All right, so putting it all together, we are going to be under this 50-minute mark. That's great. We ultimately want all these skills, all these new behaviors learned to generalize and maintain. So what do we mean to generalize? Well, we know that we want the generalization to not just happen in one place, in a classroom or a sterile, clinic room, but we wanted them to happen in all the different settings, to all the different people, with all the different stimuli and all the different instructions. So we want to look at that phase of learning. So once you master the skill, that's just phase 1. Then you got to generalize it. And phase 2, and then phase 3 would be maintenance. So we want this thing to last, not just a week, not just a month, but over time. That's not fully mastered until it's maintained. Okay, final thoughts. When you do that everything under the sun presentation, sometimes you feel like you're chasing your tail here. But the idea is that there's not just one strategy in behavior. If there was, we would all there'd just be one way to deal with it, but we don't. We individualize our strategies, and we look at the research that is there in the field, and so much of this field is going in the positive behavior support direction and away from punishers. So ABA is not that complicated. I think there's so many of these things that you may not even realize as behavioral strategies that are just implemented and already in place. But I think it's also important that you work with a professional, or if you are a professional, to work with other professionals. And if you are a professional, to work with the real professional who's the parent. So they're going to know the child the best. And the real professional is individual. They're going to know what they want more than their parents going to know what they want a lot of times. So man, there's just so many different levels of this thing. But don't get complicated. Don't get lost in the buzzwords. Don't get lost in the jargon. This should really be an applied science that's used, and shouldn't be thought of as a lecture style where you're just using these buzzwords, but using strategies that work. Okay, the secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but building the new. So we've talked a lot about replacing, relearning, unlearning, building new behaviors. It's never too late to learn. The brain is like a muscle. It's not a muscle, it's gray and white matter, but it acts like a muscle. The more you use it, you can learn stuff your whole life and relearn and unlearn. The brain is amazing. We only use 20% of our brain. There's so much of the brain we are just learning now. And lastly, mistakes are really just opportunities to learn. So I think if you have that lens on, you're going to be okay. If you're a professional or a parent, sometimes it takes my 4-year-old longer than I want for him to process what I'm saying. But these are just opportunities to learn. Maybe I need to change my delivery style. I need to be at his level, get his attention, look him in the eye, be in the same room. Maybe I need to show him what I mean. And then ultimately, it's okay to help him. A lot of times the cleanup is a joint effort. I think it's okay. As he gets older, maybe he'll do more of it on his own, or maybe he'll learn not to take out as many toys. But all these are just opportunities to learn. So if you look at it that way, I think you're going to be okay. All right. So that is our final thoughts. Thank you for coming to Spin. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching or rewatching. I love this field, and I love the individuals I work with because every day is different. Every day there's a new opportunity, a new behavior, a new family, a new child. So, man, if you have any questions, there's anything I can do, this is my phone. This is my email. Please call me. Please email me. I really do want to help as a professional in this field in any way I can. So I've enjoyed today, and I think with 50 some minutes, we're going to do a couple questions. So hopefully next year we're face to face. I don't know when Spin 2021 is going to be, but if it is face to face, I hope to see you there in person. Maybe we'll have a mask, maybe no mask. I don't know. Maybe we'll be virtual again. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. And then I think I'm just going to hang out and talk to Susan, and maybe there's a few questions to answer.
Josh, you are so helpful and so positive. You give families a sense of hope, and you help raise their education, give them strategies, you point them toward resources. So this is so much more helpful than being backed into a corner, which is how sometimes families feel. So this is wonderful information. And I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions that were collected from the audience. Okay. Some folks know that this is a re-recording because Spin blew it the first time, and we are so sorry about that. But Josh is such a kind soul that he came back just to make sure that you get that information. And so, Josh, here's one that's asking about the topic of stimming, and you brought that up a little bit about sensory stuff. So here's the question. I'm curious about stimming. Conversation among people with autism talks about masking in social situations and then really needing time to stim to get back to a calm place. Is this something we teach in behavioral intervention?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Yeah, the masking it or hiding it. or having to change it. Yeah, I think we do. The short answer is yes. We want to teach the behavior, maybe a time and place. I did say in the presentation that as long as the behavior that's stemming is not putting the individual at harm, I think it's okay. I think it's a way for the individual to get back to a calm place. And as a professional, if you're able to identify that, maybe they just need a 5-minute sensory break, kind of get all the sillies out. I mean, that's such a normal thing. I remember being in elementary school, at the end of recess, the teacher always had me sprint to the tree and back, or sprint to the fence and back, and race different kids. And she made it fun. And man, when I came back into class after recess, I was really tired. And I was always the kid in the front of the class too. So she knew I needed a lot of input. But yeah, so I mean, I think, man, it's so normal to just have all this extra sensory that we need to get rid of and get back to a normal place. So yeah, I think it's a great way. Also, one of the strategies I think in there was, first then. So man, if we can first just get this one activity done, we're going to get a break. You're going to be able to get, your stemming out, and there should be time for that to do later. So that's a great question.
Well, and you made such a good point, Josh, about people celebrating eccentricity instead of feeling that it's too weird. So
Yeah.
as an eccentric person, I really value that. So here's question number 2 for you. When you counsel parents on helping their child, do you talk to both parents? Do parents have to be on the same page for a strategy to work?
Yeah, man, that's another good one. Definitely. Yeah, you got the good cop, bad cop. A lot of times there's two households, so you want to stay away from the good cop, bad cop. You want everyone as much as possible to be on the same page. However, that we also know that certain houses may have a little bit different rules, and I think that's okay too. I don't think that I think the houses should be as similar as possible, but maybe this is a rule that's a little more for dad's house or a little more appropriate mom's house. So I think you're trying to be on the same page. They call that complementary. So you want the dad's house to improve the mom's house, and the mom's house to improve the dad's house, and the home to improve the school, and the school to improve the home. So if it's in that kind of relationship, then I think you're doing okay. That they both are helping each other. And when they both have a behavior contrast, then you got something to work on. So this happens a lot where everything's great at dad's house, but not okay at mom's house. Start to look, maybe some of the behaviors, some of the interactions of those behaviors with the environment. Dad may not have as many instructions. Maybe there's more freedom. Maybe mom has a lot of instructions. Maybe there's a happy medium, because maybe this is ultimately affecting school. So it's tough, but if you can get again where they complement each other, then I think you're on the right path.
Great. And one final question for you, please, and that is that parents, if they are listening to teachers talk to one another, they often hear teachers talk about managing behavior. Is that an outdated term? What does it mean to you, Josh?
Yeah, well, to be honest, the first thing I think of managing is I think of hand over hand, or they call it behavior modification. I think that's a tough term. I don't know if there's I can't think of a better one, but it does make me think that this is the teacher who's maybe controlling the outcome, controlling the behavior too much. It makes me feel like there's not enough choice and direction for the individual in there. But if it's the only term we got, and I can't think of a better one, is it outdated? It does sound to me like it's a term that could use some improvement, to give again more independence for the learner. I think of teachers that I liked, and they're ones that kind of lit the fire as opposed to filled the bucket. There's probably educators on here that could agree with that, and maybe some that don't agree with it. I liked to be motivated and given the parameters and the guidelines, and then give them the freedom to kind of go do something. I think all of us in the workplace, in the community, man, we don't want to feel like we're robots. So the management to me sounds a little bit like, I'm being micromanaged, and that to me is not too cool. I guess depends on what level of education and what the class is like. But man, you think of the best ones out there. They're the ones that motivated you to do more and inspired you. In healthcare, I'll tell you, the field that I'm in with ABA is that the style is very much changing to shared decision making, and I think often that is the coolest term, and I think that term should be used across all service settings, school and living settings and work settings. When you offer the pros and cons and help the family make a decision and give them the choice, man, that shared decision making is so powerful and empowering for the individual and for the family. The old style in healthcare is an outdated style, is find it and fix it. Families don't want that. Patients don't want that. They don't care how much you know. They know that you know a lot because you're in the room, you're the professional with the name tag on, but they care they want to know that you care about them. So that shared decision making, to me, I kind of went off a tangent here on the managing behavior, but so many of these fields kind of overlap with each other and have similarities. I think if we could put shared decision making into everything, that is so empowering for the individual to feel at the center of the care and the family to feel at the center. You don't want a family, or you don't want a student to feel like they're in the back seat of the car. Yeah, you want them in the front seat driving with you and sharing in the driving. So if you ever feel like you're in the back seat, maybe it's time to get in another car, get another driver, and you really want to share in that decision-making process, because we know at the end of the day, this is what individuals need to be happy and to feel fulfilled and to feel like their quality of life is at a high level. So share the decision making and try to avoid this fill the bucket kind of style of education, if you can, educators.
Thank you
And
so much.
email me if you don't think that's the right answer. I would love an email or a phone call. So yeah, please reach out if you think that could be changed or tweaked a little bit. But I think shared decision making at IEP meeting would be the way to go. You would get rid of all this due process and all this uncomfortable stuff. And what is the family and what is the student? What do they want? It's kind of flipping the model on its head. So I may get a lot of emails now. I don't know.
Well, I have to say, you're singing our song at Spin. We really value what you just said, because those are our values as well.
Cool.
Partnership and self-determination for kids that are getting a little older. So
Totally.
it's what we all want in life. And
Yeah.
we want to see you again. That's one thing I want in life, Josh. So thank you so much. And we will look forward to you at an in-person Spin conference, which is absolutely the best.
I can't wait. That is my funnest time of the year. Dressing up or putting on outfits or doing silly songs and dances. It is like the most upbeat thing you can ever go to. So if there's anyone on this call who's not been to an in-person Spin, man, you mark your calendar, and we hope this COVID thing blows over our island quickly, because it is the absolute highlight of the year.
Well, have a great Thanksgiving, Josh.
Thank you, Susan.
Thankful for you, for sure.
Thank you so much. Thanks for everything. And I've just had a blast, and always do at Spin. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
So I am pausing.